want to ask you, how many times have you called someone a narcissist? It has become the new buzzword for interactions we have with people in our friendships and our workplace. And I want to know, like, could using clinical terms actually be causing more harm than good? So to chat to me this morning, I'm joined by Dr. Edel Marron, who has a PhD in workplace behaviour, to explain it all. Morning, Edel. How are you?
Good morning, Kathryn. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, you too. Hope you had a lovely weekend. So this is something that I mean, in my own friendship group, and it's something that we're hearing a lot more of. Anybody who's on TikTok, anybody who's online, we're hearing the word narcissist being thrown around a lot these days. So I suppose let's start with the obvious. And actually, can you explain and describe to me what is narcissistic behaviour and what is narcissism in its full form?
Okay, brilliant, Kathryn. Okay, so narcissistic pathological behaviour or narcissistic personality disorder really is like a personality structure. So what the types of behaviours you'd see, Kathryn, are grandiosity or entitlement. They'd have a profound empathy deficit, so they just don't recognise others' reality as valid. You know, it's self-absorption. They have exploitation of others, and it's a pattern, not just an exception. Okay. Their identity depends very much on external validation. You know, that's detriment to them. And they have a real inability to tolerate even constructive feedback. They'll have like a disproportionate reaction to that, you know. So so it's a very distinct kind of personality disorder. And it is, the word narcissism is actually being overused. And I suppose the fear is that if it's going into everyday language, and it's on social media, it's on TikToks, it's losing its clinical weight. It's a very loaded word. And if we start to label everyone as that, then nothing is understood. And that's the issue. And there's confusion around what the actual word
means. And can I ask you, Edel, so when you're describing that personality trait, that personality type to me, immediately I go, that would be more easily recognisable at home than in the workplace. Now, I don't know, you know, because if you've got a kind of a hierarchical structure in the workplace, is that something that's kind of, is it easier hidden in the workplace is kind of what I'm asking.
Well, great question, Kathryn. Yes, because I suppose they do mask a lot in order to maintain that external image. However, you will still see behaviours in the workplace, like such as, you know, they will use charm upwards, but they'll devalue downwards. They still will use intimidation, humiliation, but it's still very subtle. You know, they're doing it, it's very indirect, it's very maybe passive aggressive ways in which to do that. They will also, you know, pit team members against each other so that they don't, so they've basically you know, created all the balls and got somebody else to fire them for them, do you know what I mean, as to call them. They'll cause smear campaigns, or as you know, to, I suppose, sabotage other members that might threaten them or see through them. You know, so they'll use different techniques. So it still all is manipulation and intimidation, but it'll be really indirect, you know, while masking that they are a really genuine person.
And how do you manage that then if you are kind of seeing or experiencing that in the workplace? It's very difficult, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it is, particularly if you are, so it can be in either end. If you could be a leader, obviously, with this disorder, or you can be a team member. But it is very difficult, and I suppose it's one for HR professionals. It's a difficult situation for them because, for example, if the narcissist is using what they call gaslighting, which means that they will try to you know, really try to make the other employees feel as if their reality isn't real. So they start to gaslight them. So things like that. So if they're using gaslighting, so there's certain names and certain behaviours that they'll use that potentially maybe HR can put into their bullying policies or whatever. But it is a tough one. And I suppose, but there is a pattern is what I'm saying. So the only way that, you know, the employee, if they are a victim to this, that, you know, to document what, you know, what they're experiencing experiencing. So at least when they're describing what they've experienced over maybe a period of time, that there is a clear pattern, here, of narcissistic behavior, so
And
but
then
it's
when it comes
different.
to friendship or in the home or in relationships, that's a
Yeah.
different matter then again, isn't it?
Yeah. So I would distinguish for people, I would say, well, what is, unhealthy behaviors as opposed to pathological narcissistic behaviors. So, like, if I was in a friendship, unhealthy behaviors for me would be one-sided all the time. Maybe they talk a lot about themselves. They kind of forget to check in, or they're envious or competitive at times of stress, but they still can reciprocate, they can still reflect, and they can repair. So that's kind of, it's not healthy, but there is a repair. But they have the capacity, see, this is the difference. They have the capacity to be remorseful or reflect, and they have empathy. That's the biggest, thing.
That's the difference.
Yeah. So, but then when you go into pathological narcissistic kind of friendships, like the friendship is like for any narcissist or relationship, it's totally transactional. So even though they might say to you, I'm here for you, it actually implies you owe me.
And I understand now, even just talking to you, why it's so important that we really mind how we use these labels and maybe not be so quick to label ourselves or label others with psychological terms like this.
Yeah,
Because they're very
100%.
different.
Oh, completely different. And I suppose the danger and the confusion is that if we start labeling people narcissist, it maximizes, false accusation for people, for maybe people who are presenting unhealthy behaviors. So unhealthy behaviors could mimic as, because of insecurity, because of trauma, because of ADHD, emotional self-regulation isn't there. So it gives a false impression of what exactly is going on for that person. But on the other hand, it minimizes, the destruction that narcissists cause to
Yes.
victims.
Yeah,
And that's massive for them. It's a real insult to them of what they've actually endured, because it's quite traumatic what they endure.
And why do you think we're labelling more, Edel, across the board?
I think, Kathryn, it's really down to, I know we talk about social media, but pop psychology and self-help is really driving a lot of this. So you'll see on TikTok, they reduce it to narc, not even narcissist, but narc. So spot the narc, or, five red flags to know if you're dating a narcissist, and so on. But so we have to be careful. Some of these are clinically based, like some people, like Dr. Romani is on, different social media platforms, clinically describing it. But then there's others that are not, and it's just been thrown out there. Now there are victims that know exactly what it is, that have credibility in terms of that. But I think it is a pop psychology thing. I think it's also partly psychological. I don't know, we live in a society where we just want everything tidy and neat and labelled and boxed. And that's just we're talking about complex human behaviour. You can't simplify that. And I think we just want a label on it. Sometimes, let's say if we've gone through a bad relationship, we just want to label that and say, right, that's, and villainise the other person. And that's
he or
not...
she was a narcissist and
Yeah.
I need it out. Yeah,
Yeah,
very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Listen, food for thought for this morning. Dr. Edel Marron, thanks for joining us on the show.
Brilliant, Kathryn. Thanks so much.
Thanks so
Take
much.
care. Thank you.
Thank you.